I'm going to fill you in on something. The infamous greatest housing crash you've ever seen of 2023 isn't going to happen. And whether you were waiting it out to try and buy your dream home, maybe you bought a house anyways even though everyone said the market was going to crash, or you could just be sitting in your house trying to wait things out. It's not going to happen, and it's not even going to be close to what we saw in 2008. So let's find out what's going to happen and where the market's headed. The first factor that's trying to pull housing prices down is interest rates. And although the federal funds rate doesn't have a direct correlation to mortgage rates, it does affect it in some way. So we see the federal funds rate go drastically higher over the last 12 to 18 months, and you'll see interest rates on mortgages do the same thing on Mortgage News Daily. This has really changed what the interest and total mortgage payment is going to be for people as they get into a new house. This means they can afford less and less of a house compared to what they used to be able to buy. Interest rates may be something that you don't think is very important, but it really changes the payment people can afford to make each month. Let's look here. We have a $400,000 house with a 20% down payment and a 3% interest rate. They're going to be paying $1,349 per month for that house. On the other hand, I'm going to give you the exact same situation. 20% down, $400,000 house, but this time with a 6.5% interest rate. That payment is now going to be $700 more, $2,023. And yes, $700 is a ton of money to almost everyone. The interest payment difference alone is something absolutely mind-boggling, and it should stop people from considering buying a house, but it hasn't been. And actually, you can see that in the data. Housing prices have been going up over the last 2 years. And yes, rates were low at the beginning of that 2-year period, but they weren't for this end part of the 2-year period. They've been going up a lot. And while they have mellowed out now and basically stayed pretty flat in 2023, that means people are still willing to pay that 7% interest. And why is that? Well, that's because of inflation, which brings me to my second point. Inflation alone has been something that's hurting the economy a lot lately. And although it's coming down, it's not at a sustainable level yet, so the Fed is still working to make it lower. And as it was high over the last year, people have had less money to save and invest, maybe buy groceries, and also make a house payment. So as these prices have gone up drastically, now interest rates are higher, the payments even higher than before. That means that they have less and less money than they had before. Although there are a lot of pieces of this puzzle, the two main ones are the increase in inflation and interest rates. They should be causing demand to go down. But what's pushing demand up? What's causing people to still have the motivation and drive to buy a new house? The number one reason we haven't seen a drop in housing prices is because of a lack of supply. Demand is moderate. I wouldn't say it's very high and I wouldn't say it's low. It's moderate. But when there's no supply of houses, it makes it seem like there's a huge demand for them. And you can see on a basic economic chart, supply and demand go hand in hand. If there's even a relatively small amount of demand, but supply is really small, it's still going to make it seem like there's no supply at all, and it's going to keep prices inflated. Now, there are two major reasons why the supply is so low. Number one, that's interest rates. If you remember my first point with Mortgage News Daily, you can see that before the 18-month period, you're actually seeing interest rates really low for houses, like 2.5% to 3%. People locked in for 30 years at that rate. They're not selling their house. They can't afford a better house than what they can have right now. They would actually have to downsize or get a less quality house than what they have now because they have that very, very low interest rate. It makes no sense for them to move on. If people aren't willing to move on from their current house, that means they're not going to sell it, and that makes supply low. The second part of that is that people want to stay in their houses, yes, because they got locked into very low interest rates. So if you're a buyer, what do you have to buy if there's no old houses to buy? You have to buy a new house. That's the only thing available to you. And that means that obviously there's not enough supply of new houses compared to what the demand is. The other piece of the puzzle that's keeping housing demand high is rent prices. Rent has gone very, very high in the last couple of years. It's actually taken a huge turn upwards, just like housing prices. But this is something that people don't necessarily expect. People are expecting their rent prices to maybe fluctuate maybe $100 a month, year over year. But I've seen people that get into an introductory offer and 12 months later, their rent payment has gone up $500 per month. That increase of $500 in rent is going to do one of two things. Number one, they're probably going to move to a different apartment complex. where their payment's going to be low for that first introductory offer and then shoot up again. That gets annoying really quick. So what someone might actually do is they might get the motivation, the drive, the willingness to get a house. And the reason they're going to do that is because they know their housing payment is going to be relatively the same month after month after month. Now, yes, your housing payment can go up due to taxes or maybe mortgage insurance, but most likely it's not going to go up $500 per month anytime soon. This change in rent prices has actually caused a lot of people to move to get a house. They can't afford to have a payment that's changing that much. They want to budget and have a consistent lifestyle that they can actually know what's going to happen month after month. With rent, you really don't. Every time your lease comes up, something different could completely happen. You could be forced to move to a different area that doesn't work for you, or you could be priced out of the area. But with a house, you're basically going to know your expenses. You can budget for a long period of time on that. The housing market does have a lot going against it, but rent prices and the large supply of people that want houses has really made the prices stay high. And while I do see prices coming down a little bit, maybe 3 to 7%, I'm not expecting the greatest housing market crash ever like a lot of other people are saying. It's just not going to happen. It's not even going to be close to what happened in 2008, where prices dropped about 30%. Please let me know in the comments below if you think supply is going to come back anytime soon. With those low interest rates that people got locked into, I don't think it's likely, but let me know what you're thinking. Also, if you enjoyed this type of content, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.